Welcome to Through the Ringer. I'm your host, Tate Frazier, and joining us today from the Ringer universe, the Ringer NFL universe specifically, Steven Ruiz. Steven, great to have you on the show, man.
Thanks for having me. I was telling you off air, I've been sick, but I got my body, my immune system got me ready for this show.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're locked in. We appreciate you fighting through it. That's real dedication to the craft. And speaking of the craft, let's talk about some football. Let's talk about quarterbacking in particular. You just wrote a piece for theringer.com about Jayden Daniels that just came out. It was a very insightful piece as to who he is, the number 2 pick, going to go there. They expect him to be the guy week 1. What have you seen from Jayden Daniels, and what do you like? We'll start with the positives, and then we can work our way into the nuances of what's going on there.
From what I've heard, it's not necessarily what I've seen. Like, you're hearing all the right things, and you're hearing the things that you want to hear from a rookie quarterback. Because the one thing, like when you're doing draft analysis and you're kind of on the outside looking in, you don't get to do the interviews. You don't really get to talk to coaches and figure out their work ethic. And the one thing that everybody is raving about, from the defensive players, the coaching staff, the offensive linemen, the receivers, the backup quarterbacks, is this guy works. Like, it's the cliche, first in, last one out. It applies to him. Nick Allegretti, who played with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, just came over from there. He lavished the most praise on him that I've seen. Like, he was like, this guy gets along with every position group, and he's making me question my work ethic, because he thought he was the guy that shows up first at the facility, but Jayden Daniels beats him there every day, apparently. So those are the things you want to hear, because I think those are the things that let your natural athletic talents kind of flourish at the next level. Like, if you're not putting in the work, we're not going to get to see the flashy parts of his game. So filling in those little things and doing the little things day to day, I think, is really going to make or break him in this league.
And Dan Quinn is a Pete Carroll guy, and Pete Carroll, you put this in your story, competition, right? Every position is open. I mean, this is how Russell Wilson got the starting job as the quarterback, because it was a competition and he beat out Matt Flynn. That's how things work. That is what Dan Quinn is trying to do here. I mean, who is pushing Jayden Daniels every day to get better? And even though you said he's there before everybody anyway, so it doesn't seem like it would matter.
Yeah, that's the one thing that kind of stood out. It was like, the theme was competition, but I think Washington went out of its way, and I don't think this is a bad thing, by the way, but to not put that pressure on Jayden Daniels. You bring in Marcus Mariota, who is not a threatening backup whatsoever, and he wasn't stealing first-team reps from Jayden Daniels. Like, you've seen other teams kind of go through the charade of making the rookie earn it. Like, I think of Urban Meyer giving Gardner Minshew first-team reps and wasting time with Trevor Lawrence is like a dumb move. And they're not doing that, which I think is good. Like, let him get as many reps as possible, because that's what he needs to get better. Don't play this game. But, like, the one person that I wouldn't say pushing him, but it's almost like an RG3 Kirk Cousins situation. Is like, Sam Hartman didn't look terrible in practice. He didn't get a lot of reps because he's the 4th-string guy right now, but, like, in the individual throwing drills, he was the one that was actually pushing Daniels.
And Sam Hartman is kind of it is a Kirk Cousins RG3 type situation there, because they do take Sam Hartman. Sam Hartman played at Wake Forest, then he goes to Notre Dame. At Notre Dame, he kind of gets that national attention that most people suspect. He's a really high-level quarterback. He's thrown for a whole lot of yards. I mean, is it nice to have a competition, even though you're saying that Jayden Daniels obviously has already separated himself, but is it nice to have somebody there where, you know, Washington Commanders fans, they've seen so many different quarterbacks go through the car wash. They're like, we need insurance behind this guy.
Yeah, I do think it is. And I like the fact that they brought in Hartman, who's a different style of quarterback than Jayden Daniels, which is like that's another parallel between the RG3 and Kirk Cousins thing. I think we're at a point in the league where it's unlikely a team's going to give up on the mobile quarterback to give, like, the pocket quarterback a chance. I think we've evolved in our thinking about the quarterback position. But having a young guy that you can learn with and, like, go through the growing pains with, I do think helps. I do wonder what Mariota brings to the locker room. He's just not a guy that talks a lot. We don't really know a lot about him. And the last time we really saw him was kind of walking away from the Falcons team when he got benched. It's not like the best taste he left in our mouth. So I think even he has something to prove as a backup in, like, providing that value if he wants to continue his career. Because at this point, obviously, he's not going to be a starter.
Philosophically, like, what does the Dan Quinn Washington Commanders team look like? You know, I think that's another thing that people were trying to figure out. Like, who are the Washington Commanders in this new iteration of a franchise? They don't have all the baggage that they've had in the past with Snyder. Now it feels like a new day, a new time. What does it look like?
Yeah, you can really feel them in that transition period. Like, the NFLPA survey came out and they were still at the bottom of the list, but I think that just speaks to the mess Daniel Snyder left behind. Or he didn't even leave it behind. He got torn away from it. He wanted to continue to live in that mess for the rest of his life. But, like, I went there with Danny Heifetz, also works for The Ringer, And we went to the Ravens practice the day after, and it was just night and day in terms of organization and like the facilities. Like, for instance, and maybe I shouldn't be putting this out there, like Danny Heifetz had to use a porta potty at the Commander's facility. And like at the Ravens facility, it's just so nice. So that also like extends to the competition thing, because like you heard Washington talk about competition. They just kept talking about it. Like, look, we're competing on the practice field, and then you go to Baltimore, and then it's just competition without having to say it. So I think they're still in that stage where they're trying to get to that point where they don't have to, talk themselves up as competitors.
Yeah, instilled expectations versus trying to create expectations is a totally different game, and I think that's a good. I feel bad for Heifetz. He had to go to the porta potty, but I think it does showcase what you're saying. Let's talk about that rookie QB class, because there is a lot of headliners in there, and a lot of people that are excited about what these eras look like. Whether it's Caleb Williams, obviously at number one, Daniels, who we've talked about, Drake May. You go to Minnesota with McCarthy, Michael Penix in Atlanta potentially. What are our expectations for this class, and like which ones do we think will kind of rise to the top as far as who we're actually talking about this season, not just in the future?
It kind of reminds me of the 2017 class, which like going into it, there was question marks. Like there were definitely intriguing prospects. Like Patrick Mahomes obviously came out of that. Deshaun Watson came out of that. Obviously his career has gone a little differently than we expected.
Mitch Trubisky, Steven.
Mitch Trubisky. How did I forget about Mitch Trubisky? I didn't want to insult the UNC.
Mitchell at the time.
That's
time.
That's right. But even he went to a Pro Bowl in year two. Like,
that's right.
And I think that should be the expectation. I think like there are a couple guys that have high level potential, but I do think we can get a couple starters out of this. Like Bo Nix was drafted way too high. Like, you're a college basketball guy. My equivalent would be like if Tyler Kolek went in the lottery.
Yeah.
Like, a good player, but like that's a little rich for his blood. But like with Sean Payton, I think you can get like a Teddy Bridgewater type production out of him. Like we saw Teddy Bridgewater kind of thrive with Sean Payton. Drake May's the intriguing one to me. Like I could see it going anyway. I could see him having like a Sam Darnold type rookie season. I could see him having not a CJ Stroud or Justin Herbert type season, but something close to that. I think he could be like a 18 touchdowns, 10 interception kind of guy from the jump. And I'm really intrigued to see how that works out. Caleb Williams is the one that I feel most confident about. And I know there are a lot of question marks about how his game is going to translate. But when you watch him at USC and you really watch him like down to down, he's got a lot of the little quarterbacking stuff down. Like he's not like a vet at this point, but he's like a third-year quarterback in my mind. Like I think that's how he's going to look on the field in year one. The question with him is, can he avoid the mistakes? I think there is like a Justin Fields type dilemma with him. They're totally different quarterbacks, but Justin Fields had these high highs, but the low lows were so low that it kind of wiped out the highs. And I think there is some potential with Caleb Williams there. But if he can mitigate like those turnovers, I think he'd have a really big rookie year.
And I think it's also nice when you have Keenan Allen and DJ Moore to bail you out. He also has a relationship with Roma Dunze. It does seem like they get along really well. So, I mean, when you talk about weapons and having guys that are going to help you out, Keenan Allen is a great one, and I like that situation. So we're looking at Rookie of the Year pick. Caleb Williams, obviously the favorite, plus 125. Daniels, plus 650. Marvin Harrison Jr., plus 750. Do you think it's kind of the obvious duds, Caleb Williams, or maybe a Bo Nix or someone could come out of nowhere, Drake May, and make a run for it?
I think Caleb Williams is like the obvious, he's going to win Rookie of the Year. But if I'm looking at the betting value and I'm looking at the betting odds, I really like Marvin Harrison Jr. And what is he at? Plus 750?
Plus 750, yep.
The Cardinals offense, like I know the stats didn't look great, but like their scheme, it was solid. Drew Petzing is a second-year offensive coordinator, really up-and-coming guy, like a lot of hype amongst like the film watchers. Kyler Murray, I think, is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in this league. I don't know if he's a top 10 quarterback, but he's at least in that discussion, doesn't really get talked like that over the last couple of years. So I could see a big year out of Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think he's the one receiver who's ready to just come in and play right away. He was a pro receiver 2 years ago. I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up like 1,200 yards in his rookie year, which is unheard of.
And it's crazy because Kyler Murray had this weird, like, lame duck. We're going to trade this guy. We're going to get him out of town. And now all of a sudden he just is the guy again. And I think that narrative kind of changed the perception of him. But again, he's still a number one pick. He's still a guy that's shown electric flashes. You throw a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. out there on the, that knows how to do things and make things happen. I mean, that is a nice pick at plus 750. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back with Steven, we're going to talk QB rankings, do a little preview of the season. We'll be right back after the break.